Welcome to the Star Chamber. I'm Ryan Swayze, a retired Air Force Lieutenant Colonel and the founder and president of the Walk the Talk Foundation, a nonprofit that advocates for and advises currently serving and former military service members going through the arduous journey of administrative processes and investigations in our government.
And I am Francescagraham, a retired Army Lieutenant Colonel and the Chief Operating Officer and Chief Advisor for the Walk the Talk Foundation. For all our returning guests, welcome back. And for our new listeners, thank you for tuning in. Before we begin this week's topic, please do not forget to hit that subscribe button, check out our Walk the Talk Foundation website, and hit that donate button if you think we're doing a good job. Also, check out our newsletter, the DoD Times Redacted, on all the socials, including LinkedIn, X, Instagram, and Facebook. Links in the description. All right, Star Chamber listeners, let's get started. Welcome back, Star Chamber listeners, to another mini episode. And I'm your host for today's episode, Francesca. So hopefully the title was a little bit catchy for you. It contains two words, one of which is one of my favorite words to describe what we here at the foundation, the Walk the Talk Foundation, see pretty regularly from people who hold the title of leader in the military. Whether that is a commander, a sergeant major, a platoon sergeant, platoon leader, lieutenant, all of the officer ranks, and any enlisted rank above E5, sergeant. And most people know intuitively what an abuser is, someone who abuses their authority, as an example. Not many people know intuitively either what a eunuch is in a historical sense, or what a eunuch of a quote-unquote leader is within the military. And when I say military, again, we're talking broadly the Department of Defense and the Coast Guard. So just a quick little lesson first. So eunuchs are historically castrated men, often placed in positions of power within royal courts or empires. While they were stripped of certain biological traits, they were, paradoxically, entrusted with sensitive authority, managing harems, treasuries, or even empires, because they were seen as politically safe, loyal, non-threatening, and controllable. So in the context of this discussion, and in the context of what we see within the foundation, eunuchs of authority, we'll call them, refers to people who hold leadership positions, who have titles such as commander, sergeant major, first sergeant, etc., have titles but no real courage or moral backbone, avoid making hard decisions to protect themselves, let subordinates or bureaucracy do their dirty work, or escape accountability by playing weak, neutral, or uninvolved. These are the commanders who say, trust the process. These are the commanders or sergeants majors, first sergeants, etc., who say, well, the judge advocate, said that this investigation was legally sufficient. Therefore, I don't even need to read the investigation because it's legally sufficient. So abusers misuse power. Eunuchs refuse to use power when it matters most. And many people, every single one of our folks that we help with the foundation, and then many people listening to this podcast will hopefully, at the end of this podcast and moving forward in their career, be able to spot a eunuch and be able to spot those eunuchy phrases and immediately have red star clusters going off in their brain and saying, wait, no, something's wrong. Something is very, very wrong. This person, I know that this person has so much power because they are a commander, or they are a first sergeant, or they are a platoon sergeant, or they are a squad leader, whatever it is. And they're going hands off, and I don't understand why. And they're saying, trust the process. So just a little bit deeper into it. So your abusers, These are your people who are holding leadership positions. You'll notice I don't say leaders. These are your people in the military, Department of Defense and Coast Guard, who hold leadership positions, who weaponize policy, investigations, and other administrative actions to retaliate against whistleblowers or other people who are vulnerable, other service members who are vulnerable for whatever reason. Essentially, anyone who has less power than them. And an example, I'd like to give a couple examples of a abuser of power. So your abusers. One example, this is one of our clients. We are told that, and we know that within the Uniform Code of Military Justice, there are punitive articles and non-punitive articles. A punitive article of the Uniform Code of Military Justice is something that carries with it some sort of punishment like prison, as an example. So Article 120, sexual misconduct, rape, those types of things. Those are punitive articles. And there's quite a few punitive articles within the Uniform Code of Military Justice. There's quite a few non-punitive articles within the Uniform Code of Military Justice, we'll say UCMJ. For administrative punishments or administrative documentation, essentially derogatory negative paperwork, by and large, you should say within the DoD and the Coast Guard that if you are being issued a derogatory piece of paperwork, a letter of reprimand, page 7 in the Coast Guard, a GOMAR in the Army, etc. If you're being issued a derogatory piece of paperwork that includes on it an allegation or a substantiation that you as a person, officer, enlisted, warrant officer, etc., violated a punitive article of the Uniform Code of Military Justice, you should have a right to see the evidence that's being used against you. However, within the administrative system, we have seen commanders punish service members with derogatory paperwork that they file into their permanent record that contains cites violation of punitive articles of the UCMJ. And they have never seen the evidence that was used against them to cite them for these violations. That just seems wrong. And you know why it seems wrong? Because it is wrong. And we have a client who is dealing with that very issue right now. A year and a half later, this client still does not have any of the documentation that was used to file derogatory, career, life-altering paperwork into their permanent record, citing violations of punitive articles of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Another example of an abuser of power, someone who, and a command will say, this is another issue or case study we'll say within the Walk Talk Foundation, a command who issues a service member a derogatory piece of paperwork, files it into their permanent file for an action that they say was inappropriate, that was a part of a person's protected communication over a year earlier, while this service member, they issue this derogatory paperwork while this service member is administratively detached from that unit and moving to their next unit. Just think about that for a second. You have signed out of your unit and you get a text message saying, just so you know, we just filed this next piece of derogatory administrative paperwork into your permanent record. We've never told you about it. We've never conducted an investigation. And you now have this on your record. And you can't fight it with us because you no longer belong to our unit. But we can give it to you because we're the command. Those are glorious in the most sadistic way, examples of abuses of power. Alternatively, your eunuchs. What we find with our eunuchs is our eunuchy leaders, eunuchy people holding leadership positions, they rather quickly become eunuchs when you ask them for help. When you walk up to them or you give them a Article 138 or a letter requesting redress or something that says, hey, commander, I know you're invested with all of this power as a commander. I know that you can do so many things within our system of government and within the Uniform Code of Military Justice. I need your help. I need you to look at what is happening to me and help me to untangle this Gordian knot within which I find myself. Your eunuch, which we see very, very regular in shocking regularity for our service members who are asking for help from their commander. Your eunuch says, well, okay, I'm going to give your request to my judge advocate, and I'm going to have my judge advocate or judge advocate general, whichever, I'm going to have that person weave together the most cheetah flip mental gymnastics argument to prove to you that I, as the commander, who is invested with so much authority at the general officer level, the amount of authority to actually send you to prison for the rest of your life, I am going to have this Judge Advocate General look at your request, and then I will send it back to you with their words spewed onto this piece of paper that I then sign, saying that, you know what? I cannot help you. And the reason I cannot help you is because there is already an administrative process for you to resolve this issue. That's one example. Or I cannot help you because there is a process and you need to trust the process. We talk about this all the time. Commanders, sergeants, majors, first sergeants, etc. Trust the process, trust the process. Ryan emphasized enough. Our advisors with the foundation cannot emphasize enough. Do not trust the process. Do not trust it ever, 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 ever. An example of a eunuch. A service member believes to their core, and they have evidence that shows that their commander retaliated against them after the service member reported a sexual assault. The command response to this is to initiate an investigation against the person who reported the sexual assault, initiate investigation, and find them guilty of violations of the UCMJ. This is the same person we're talking about who I used as an example for the abuse of authority. But we see this scenario play out over and over again. When the service member submits a letter requesting redress, which is part of the Article 138, complaints of wrong process. When the service member submitted the letter requesting redress, the commander's response, as in the memo they signed that their judge advocate general made for them, the commander's response was, I cannot help you remove that derogatory paperwork because there is already an administrative process in place to do what you are asking, i.e. a ABCMR or a PRRB in the Coast Guard or a BCNR, I think it is in the Navy. I'm getting my acronyms all messed up here. So there is already an administrative process to take care of what you're asking. And our response is, you know what, Commander, you're right. There is. But the regulation also says, across the services, the regulation also says that you, Commander, have the ability to step in and make it so the service member does not have to go through that arduous, years-long process, spend money, however they're spending money, to fight back against something that you know is wrong and the evidence shows is wrong. But the commander steps back and says, you know what? There's a process and I don't have to do anything. So I am going to rely on that process. As I said earlier, avoid making hard decisions to protect themselves, because if that commander actually went to the personnel section, division, whatever it is, and said, you know what? This service member makes a valid argument. I think that they were being retaliated against. This timeline makes sense that there was some sort of retaliation or reprisal. Let's remove that piece of derogatory paperwork from the record. If the commander does that, the commander is then assuming the risk of the entire situation, which They have the ability to do. But they step back and they say, you know what? No, I want to make sure that I can retire. I want to make sure that I can continue to promote. I want to make sure that I never have to answer questions of, why did you do this, Commander? Why did you remove that derogatory piece of paperwork? Don't you know this person is a terrible service member? Why did you do that? So they say, I don't want to have to answer those questions. I don't want to risk my retirement, and I don't want to risk getting promoted wherever they are in their career trajectory. And so I'm going to sit back and say, yes, I have authority, but I am only going to use it to abuse you. I am not going to use it to help you. Eunuchs refuse to use power when it matters most. They let their subordinates or bureaucracy do their dirty work. They escape accountability by playing weak. Oh, I wish I could help you, but oh, I can't do anything else to help. We heard this 2 times last week with 2 different people, multiple different ranks, up to the 05 level. Oh, I really wish I could help you, but the process just needs to play out. How many times have you people heard that? I'm sure you've heard it quite a bit. They escape accountability by playing weak, neutral, or uninvolved. That's what we need to think about. That's what we need to watch out for. Abusers versus eunuchs. Both are terrible. But do you know who actually, I think, Francesca's theory? The people in leadership positions who are the lead contributor to the mental health crisis, suicides, talent lost, and broken trust within the Department of Defense and the Coast Guard. The people who are the lead contributors, the fact that of the active duty service members in the Department of Defense in the last recording who committed suicide, 29% of them were undergoing some sort of administrative or legal process. The types of people, whether it's abusers versus eunuchs, the types of people who are the lead contributors to those issues, mental health, suicide, talent loss, broken trust, it's your eunuchs. People understand, they can comprehend, they can look at abuse and they can say, you know what? I think I understand what's happening. I think I can respond to this. I think I can fight back against this. But it's your eunuchs who say, you know what? I'm sorry, I can't help you. You just need to trust the process. I'm sorry. The Judge Advocate General said this was legally sufficient. When you get responses like that from people who are invested with tremendous authority, tremendous power, a service member cannot help but feel utter betrayal and also utter helplessness. It's the eunuchs who create this gray blob within which service members who are undergoing these situations find themselves in, that purgatory, that never-ending purgatory of, I don't know what to do. How do I fight back against, well, blanket statement was legally sufficient? How do I fight back against, oh, I'm sorry, only a 3-star general. I just can't help you. I wish I could do more. That's insane, right? Isn't that insane? So if you find yourself in that situation, if you find yourself in that purgatory, that amorphous blob that these eunuchs who are sitting in leadership positions create, give us a call here at Walk the Talk Foundation. We'll try to help you fight back. Or if you find yourself being a victim of abusive authority, give us a call. But more than any of that, more than our, advertisement for the services that we provide here at Walk the Talk Foundation, learn to recognize what's happening. Learn to build and understand the reality in which you exist. If you are the victim of a eunuch, understand it for what it is. Understand you're being gaslit. You're dealing with someone who is going to hide and avoid making hard decisions to protect themselves and who have no moral backbone. And from that understanding, you will have a start to be able to fight back, and you will understand that you are being betrayed and that you need to do something about it. That's it for today's episode. Enjoy the rest of your week. Well, that's it for this week's topic. We really appreciate you tuning in. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and check out our foundation website at walkthetalkfoundation.org.
And feel free to reach out and give us feedback. You can get a hold of us via Facebook, X, Instagram, LinkedIn, and our foundation's website. Details in the description section. Thanks for tuning in, and see you next episode.